Manuel Enrich, welcome to the Iberian Property Talks. Manuel Enrich is investor relations for Sareb, one of the biggest banks and most related to real estate. Welcome. I will begin with the hard way. $1 million question that everyone wants to know is how long do we need to return to December 2019? What is the real impact of this crisis in the value of the assets and on the real estate market, on your view?
Well, first, Antonio, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of these Iberian property talks, that they've been very useful. Congratulations on the idea. Well, yes, you say it's $1 million question and difficult to assess. I think it will depend primarily on how long the crisis is going to last. Above all, the health crisis, how much time we are going to be all confined with no activity at all. So let's assume that in the best case scenario will be confined from the middle of March until middle of June. That will be a quarter. So at least I guess that the activity is going to be reduced by 25%. Even a bit more than that, because we have seen that the deals that were close to be closed before the confinement, they are being closed until the notaries close their shops. But there has been some activity in March. April has been otherwise. I mean, April has been very quiet. We have to keep our fingers crossed that when we start to move out, we will be, us all as individuals, very cautious. Because if we have another confinement getting in, let's say in the summer or in October, then the numbers could be devastated. So let me be optimistic on that, Antonio, and think that this is going to be the only confinement that we'll have. And then the activity is going to take a bit to start, but let's assume that once we go out, we will be out. And with that, probably the activity will be anything between 25 to 35% reduced. And probably we'll be back where we were in 2018 at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022.
One of the interesting facts, and it will mean a lot on this recovery, is that a lot of money is being injected in the economy, and as we know, in the medium term, this money will be available in the economy, and some of them will return or will try to find safe place as real estate might be. And interest rates seem to be in a low record for a long period of time. What are the consequences of all this liquidity for real estate values?
Well, certainly the liquidity is going to help. It's going to help not only real estate, it's going to help the economy overall. But the effect on interest rates is going to be huge, in my opinion, for interest rates. Let's assume that we are living in a world in which you only have three asset classes to invest. Let's say bonds, equities, and real estate. And we forget about the infrastructures, oil, or gold, or other type of assets. So just to make the analysis simple. In terms of bonds, if you buy government bonds, probably you will have to pay for it. So that's why the central banks are buying government bonds. If you think about corporate bonds, then what you have is that you may have some yield on it, but lots of risk. So probably it's not going to be that attractive. So bonds, and that's another reason why the central bank they are buying corporate bonds. If you go to equities, with the exception of REITs, that they have by law to deliver dividend, the rest of the company, most of them, they are stopping dividend payments in favor of liquidity to preserve the balance sheet, which makes sense. So equities, despite the fact that the markets have crashed, they have little attraction. So what is left? The real assets, and real estate in this case is going to be one of the best asset classes that you may think of. Imagine the lowest yielding asset that we have in real estate, which is residential rented assets that have a yield of what, 3%? Even that, it is true that they yield 3% because they have low risk. But it's going to be very attractive, and we are seeing interest overall, and it's been said that in the resi world, build to rent is going to be one of the opportunities that this crisis arises. And the beauty of resi rented, despite the low yield, is that they have very low delinquency. I've heard, I don't have data to prove it in my house, but I heard on the market that the delinquency rate that you find or in the month of April on resi rented, it's been around 10%, whereas in other type of assets, in which yields are 5, 6, 7%, delinquency or asking for moratoriums in payments has been up to 40%. So any of those assets is going to be quite attractive compared to the other investment alternatives that you will have in the market.
Following what you were saying about the moment for rental resi, that could be one way to relaunch the economy and to make stronger the resi market. What other urgent policies to relaunch economy and real estate economics do you believe are now most important?
Well, I Antonio, do believe that real estate is going to be the engine of the recovery, economic recovery. And let's concentrate on the aggregate of who is contributing, at least in Spain, to the GDP. And in here, you have that the major contributor to the Spanish GDP is tourism, which is more than 15%. And you have hotels and restaurants in there also included. The fourth largest contributor to GDP is retail. Those two industries, they are going to be damaged because of the crisis. Tourism, I mean, whenever we open the borders, probably it's going to be in 3 weeks. We don't know who is going to be traveling abroad. German authorities are saying that it could be advisable not to go to the second residence in Spain, mainly in Mallorca. So we have that almost 30% of the GDP in Spain is going to be impacted by the crisis. The third largest contributor to the GDP in Spain is precisely health, and that will continue, probably will increase the weight. So the second largest player in Spanish GDP is construction and real estate. So if you want to get out of this economic crisis, you as an authority will have to support construction and real estate, because tourism, you have no control over it, and retail, you don't have control over it. So in that sense, construction, you may think about infrastructures, but in Spain, as you know, we have lots of them already built. Maybe you have to build the highest speed train on the west, maybe Madrid to Lisbon, or the highest speed train on the north. But there is not much left to do in infrastructures. So the only way to activate construction is through real estate. So real estate is going to be key. And how you can activate a sector like real estate, you have to bear in mind that the sector overall, it's quite healthy, is not leveraged, and they have the opportunity. There is investor appetite to be on it. So authorities, what they have to promote is this type of public-private agreements to build things together. Imagine you put land as a municipality in hands of a private developer to do affordable build-to-rent, as you were saying. This is one of the things that they can do. They can also help with tax advantages or tax concessions, and certainly authorities have to be much more flexible in relationship to permits and licenses and all that, being open-minded, understanding mixed uses of land and buildings, things like that. Let me put you the example of the city of Madrid, which is very interesting. Since we started this confination in our houses, the authorities have approved the development of Castellana Norte. After 25 years of negotiation, it's been approved in the starting of the pandemic. We know that the real estate and the council authorities of Madrid, they are having continuous meetings to understand what we need as professionals to revamp the economy, because the Madrid Town Council understands that to activate the economy, real estate is going to be key. And real estate, they're having meetings with professionals in the bars and restaurants, because they understand that is also a key. But if you help bar and restaurants, that they are basically tenants in the different retail stores that owners have, they will help the economy too. They are trying to speed up licenses too, and this is very interesting. If you are going to do a minor reform in your house, you don't need any permit. You don't need permits anymore. And now what they are doing too is, for new works and new developments, they are putting in place this electronic means. I think it's called building information modeling, that basically you get the license or you get the permit to go ahead with a responsibility statement on the part of the constructor or the developer. And they are doing a pilot test with the Mau Calderon development. So here's an example of how authorities can put in place, other than tax exemptions or help or lending, to the real estate to activate the economy. And I'm a firm believer that this is going to be key to the end of the crisis.
This is very interesting, because one of the topics you mentioned, I believe, will be one of key main lessons of this crisis, and this is related with innovation and with the digitalization of the economy. We are learning how to work online, which is new for many of us. For me, it is. So how do you see technology changing our lives and more quickly than ever we have dreamed of?
Yes, certainly. I mean, I'm not an expert on technology and all these kind of things, but I'm a user of it. What I think is that this crisis is going to accelerate the changes that we were already seeing. I mean, this means of talking, I remember when I was living in the USA in the early 80s, that the only contact I had with my family was a polite call once a month. And we could not see each other's face and all that. And now this is so different. But certainly, we've seen how e-commerce or e-paying, it's now a norm. But certainly we were using technology and digitalization in Sareb well before. I mean, we've seen that most of the developers now, that they are using and putting forward these virtual site visits that are certainly increasing, and they will once we can go out. If you can have a virtual visit to your house, it will be better than going personally and avoiding the transportation risk that you may have involved in that. Another thing that we have in Sareb, which is very interesting, is the electronic key. So basically, if you've done a virtual visit to one of our sites, and then you want to see it in person, we can redeploy you an electronic key in your mobile device so that you can go on your own. You don't need to go with a servicing company, whatever. You can go on your own, and with your telephone, you will open the door without touching it, which is probably going to be also interesting for the hotel business. because it is said that one of the major contagious things that you have is opening doors. So with an electronic key, you will open the door and you have the possibility of getting into the visit or to your room in the hotel. In new office buildings, it's so common now that you have with your card, your personal card, you put that through a screen, and the system will know to which floor you are headed up, and they will assign you an elevator without touching nothing. So I think that these parts, they will be more common. And then as other things of technology that we've used, I mean, you know that Sareb has a huge amount of assets, a lot of land, and one we've been using for some years already, drones to oversee what we have and how the assets are. So imagine that I have a request from a developer in Germany that is interested in a land plot of Sareb. I can send him a movie, a film of that plot of land, and if interest arises on it or continues, then he can plan a visit to us. Another example in the you know that non-performing loans is one big chunk of the assets that we own, and we put in place in June 2017 an NPL platform, which is an alive virtual data tape, which is hosted in the website that allows investors to analyze different loans and to buy them if they want. So yes, technology is quite important, and there are many other things to come that, to be honest, I don't understand very well, like blockchain or artificial intelligence, but I can tell you that when I see the marketing teams at our company, they are constantly talking about the good things that they will do for business, these new technologies that, as I said, I understand very badly.
Any last word for everyone who can be listening us?
Well, first of all is the advice that we have to keep health and safe. So please, let's work on that. And the second thing, for all of us that we are in real estate, I think we have a privilege that we are going to be in one of the sectors that is going to lead the recovery. So we are very lucky that we are in this type of sector, and we will, in my opinion, will need to try and help these sectors that they are going to be more affected as tourism and retail.
Manuel and Enrich, many thanks for being with us. It was a really big pleasure. Many thanks.
Many thanks to you, Antonio.